once again, and welcome to the PopRewind Podcast, brought to you by PopRewind.com. My name is Lee, and with me is...
Linz.
And we talk about things on this podcast.
Sometimes.
Really? Do we really have discussions on here?
I wouldn't say discussions. I would say information unloading.
Or maybe you could say it's kind of like an information superhighway.
Whoa, let's not get out of hand here.
Whoa, you know, I think that might be a perfect segue into discussing today's topic. What are we going to talk about on this podcast?
It's funny you should ask. We are going to talk about a topic very near and dear to both of our hearts, early interneting.
I've actually written Valentine's cards to early interneting before. That's how near and dear it is to my heart.
That is romantical.
Every February, I'm just like, early internet, be my Valentine.
Well, I mean, the internet was a very different place in the mid-90s or so when, you know, this is the time period we're referring to as early interneting.
I'm casting a net for you, Valentine.
Oh, you're still going with that.
Oh, all right. So let's just start off with the clip here. We're going to play. This is kind of how people saw the internet, I guess, in the early days.
Yeah.
So this is from like the early 90s. So we're just going to play this for you here.
I'm a internet service provider here in Dallas, Texas.
Well, wait a minute. Before you say that, you've got to tell us before we look at this video, what is an internet? Would you mind just sharing that with us for the 4 or 5 people that don't know what an internet is? Would you tell us?
The internet obviously is the nationwide network of networks communication, and to this day, more than 60% of the traffic on the internet is email. So it's value-added service and the blending of the technologies that you're referring to.
And everybody eventually in this country, will everybody be somehow hooked into an internet in the next 5, 10, 15 years?
If we have anything to do about it, yes, they will.
Well put.
So, back in the day, what did you think the internet was?
Well, when I first heard of the internet, it kind of came as part of the new computer we had gotten. So it was like, oh, and we've got a new computer, and it comes with this way to send electronic mail. And I'm like, I don't even like to write actual letters. And now I'm like going to be obligated to do this just to justify the new family computer. Not too interested.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that was like your AOL?
Yeah, early days of AOL. And I feel like in the very early days, there wasn't much you could do with it. It was sort of like you turned it on. And maybe there were like some keywords, but in terms of actually browsing, and maybe it just took me a really long time to figure out, but I feel like it might have even been like another 2 years or something before I figured out, oh, websites.
I think you were on the internet a year or two before I finally joined up, but my first experience, my dad was just like, oh, my friend has the internet at his house. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. So he went over, he's like, oh, give me a topic. And at the time, I was, as I still am, obsessed with Ren and Stimpy. So let's look up Ren and Stimpy. So we looked through, like the one website about it, and it had this FAQ. And so my dad's friend like printed out the entire FAQ for me. And I took it home and I would like study it, and it was like such a thrill.
How do you pronounce FAQ?
I just say FAQ.
But in your head, when you read it?
I say FAQ.
Really?
Yeah.
I say it as FAQ.
Is that the thing? Is this like a GIF thing?
I have no idea. In my head, I've always just read it as FAQ.
Hey, Twitter, let us know. How do you say FAQ?
FAQ.
Oh,
they're all going to write back.
Dang it.
With the letters F, A, and Q, and we're going to be like, see, we were both right.
Okay, I guess that doesn't translate very well.
No.
But also, after, I went online for the first time at my dad's friend's house, he gave me this book. It was like geared toward 12-year-olds, which I probably was at the time. And it was what you should know about the internet. So it went through Usenet, and it went through all the different smileys, showing you like you could have a smiley face with a nose or not a nose. Like, this is relevant information.
That totally like blew your mind at the time too, didn't it?
It did. I'm like, whoa, it does look like a smiley when you kind of turn your head a little.
We were both pretty early adopters to the internet. I got mine, it's probably early 90s. And it was several years before I even really knew other people with a computer. It was very early.
Yeah, that was
to
a
the
weird
internet,
thing too.
Yeah, I remember, like, people would come over to my house to type things. And then, you know, you're just like, hey, that's wasting a lot of ribbon from my dot matrix printer. Go do your homework at the library.
Right? I kind of felt like we were the library, but with snacks. But it is weird, thinking back. I mean, we were both of a time where we had done projects with actual encyclopedia. Like, you would have to go to the library or, you know, own a set of encyclopedias
we
and
owned it.
physically look up. But then by the time I hit high school and university, I'm like, yeah, okay, let's see what Wikipedia has to say about my paper.
Yeah. Have you ever Googled encyclopedia on Wikipedia? That'll kind of mess with your head.
Will it break the internet?
It kind of goes into this weird encyclopedic loop.
Does it really?
No.
Oh.
It's like one of those choose your own adventure books that says turn to page 48, and then you turn to page 48, and it's like turn to page 21, turn to page 48, turn to page 21, and then it just never ends.
3 hours later, I'm like, oh, I get it.
Yeah. People didn't know what the internet was, really. Like, you'd describe it to them, and friends would come over, and the only thing they ever wanted to do was, like, go into chat rooms and just make people angry. And I'm like, this, you know, this isn't fun. I can actually do a keyword. I can go to, like, AOL keyword Coca-Cola, and now we're, like, looking at Coke. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there were kind of early trolls.
Yeah, that was like people's native instinct, right? Was just to go into chat rooms. But they realize everybody's in these chat rooms for the same reason. So there's no fun to it. It's just a bunch of random arguments.
Or you would have those friends that didn't really understand the internet and didn't understand why you would want to be on the internet.
Yeah, I had a lot of friends who were like, why don't you go outside? Why don't you play? What are you going to do with computers?
Yeah.
You have friends on the computer? Really?
Why do you want to email? Why do you need your own email address?
You want to stay connected to things? Stay connected to what? Is it sticky?
Yeah.
It's a web, isn't it?
I mean, I had friends in high school, so this is, I don't know, like 2000 or so, that were not on the internet, couldn't see the value in it, would never go on it. But now they're the same people that are all over Facebook posting 8 million pictures of their kids every day.
Yeah. It's funny. I think the whole culture has actually shifted from maybe people like you and I that use the internet and were, you know, let's face it, kind of nerdy and growing up, right?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, let's be honest here. And now suddenly it's like everybody's online. Comic books are cool for everybody. And it's like, well, hey, you know, I'm all in favor of this because these are things I like. But, you know, it's a little odd.
Maybe you could have been my friend back in the day.
Yeah.
You know? It's weird. It is.
I remember I used to get a lot of grief for liking the Beatles when I was younger. And people were like, why don't you listen to something modern, like the Spice Girls? I'm like, oh, yeah. That'll endure. And now it's like, it's cool to like whatever. It's just such a different time.
It is. I mean, yeah, both good and bad. I mean, I'm all for it, but at the same time, it is kind of, I can see where people would be annoyed with that.
Yeah, a little bit. Now, you know, something about the internet is it's like mainstream culture didn't get it. So I remember watching an episode of Ghost Rider where there were supposed to be like computer hackers or Ghost Riders going through time via a modem somehow. I don't know.
Okay.
And it just showed like this magical world where he was in like, you know, this early 90s computer-generated computer universe with, like, motherboards flying by.
Oh, my God.
Or, like...
Which was my experience with the internet.
Yeah. People are like, are you on the internet? Is it like Lawnmower Man? I'm like, it's totally like Lawnmower Man.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, it was. But unfortunately, it was more like the Lawnmower Man Super Nintendo game and less like the movie, so... Yeah.
Wah wah.
So there was that. I don't know. It was almost like the tunnels that Bill and Ted fly through when they're time traveling. I'm like, I don't think my computer does that.
No.
The movie Hackers, I think, had the same thing going on. And that was a movie that was like supposed to be about hackers. And I'm like, well, maybe let's pretend the internet doesn't look like that.
Back in the internet early days, I know you and I had, we became friends back then. And this was long before Google Hangouts and Skype, so we would have to use instant messengers to talk to one another.
Well, from what I remember, we met online so long ago, there wasn't an instant messenger we could both use at first. And then, like, another year or two later, ICQ got really popular. And so we would chat over that with its, like, current affair sound effects and car honking noises. And then at some point, you could use AOL Instant Messenger without having an AOL account. So I think we started using that. And
that was a little easier.
But you know what's interesting? I think these things have kind of fallen by the wayside, and that maybe like chat rooms and, you know, instant messaging is kind of gone, and we have text messaging now, which feels like it should be better because it's so immediate, and you can just have your phone with you all the time, and hey, friend, what's going on? But you don't really get into deep conversation via text messaging.
Well, when you're texting, you're usually out to dinner or something and, you know, doing something else. But if you're actually sitting on your computer, typing out responses, waiting for the response to come in, typing back, it was a little more engaging.
You're right. Engaging is the key here. I used to sit online for 5 hours and be engaged in a conversation. Yeah. And, I'm sure we had plenty of great discussions about, like, Nintendo 64 and our favorite bands at the time and Surge or something. But
probably.
We don't have such great discussion over text anymore. It hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll load up ICQ if it's still around and reconnect one of these days. Uh-oh. But it is kind of strange, too, because a lot of people will use Facebook for keeping in touch and everything. And I don't know, I kind of see Facebook as the next MySpace, but where you were on MySpace, you would kind of connect with random people who had similar likes to you.
Right.
So if you like the same band, you would add them to your MySpace and make new friends. But more like with Facebook, you don't add people you don't know.
Right. Well, it's interesting how the community online has changed, because we used to kind of have to pick our residence on the internet. Do you remember this?
Literally, yeah.
Yeah, on GeoCities, you would choose your neighborhood and your street address and your street number or something. How would that work?
Yeah, you would, if you wanted to get a free GeoCities website with like all 2 megabytes of storage space.
That's like 4 animated GIFs.
Oh my God, that's so many. You would have to like dial up to your 14.4 modem, go on geocities.com. Yeah, you would pick there'd be different neighborhoods for different topics. So if you did, I don't know, a Sailor Moon website, you would go to Tokyo Springs, and then you'd pick your address.
Which
and then
you totally
you would,
guessed. That's not off the top of your head.
Thin air. Pulled it out of thin air. Anyway, so you would pick your address and then hope by the time everything loaded that someone else didn't come in and take it from you.
And did they?
Many times. So you'd have to go through the process again. And again, this is way back when you were on dial-up, so it would take forever to get your 2 megabytes.
Yeah. It's funny how different even email used to be very hard to come by. We're so spoiled these days, Gmail accounts, live accounts, whatever. And back then it was ooh, let me sign up for this random company that's offering a megabyte of email space. Ooh, I can have up to 80 emails at one time here. And
yeah, because I think Hotmail was the first one, and I think that one again gave you 2 megs. And I would sign up for a bunch of free Hotmail accounts to get more free GeoCities space. Sorry, GeoCities.
Oh, and why isn't it around anymore?
But yeah, I think I still have a couple Hotmail ones that I, for some reason, have not closed, but I kind of begrudgingly go in and check them every once in a while.
See, I would always try to find the most obscure ones. So I remember there was one I had that was kind of a long name, and I was really bummed when they said they were going to be closing, and I sent them a letter, and I was like, I'm going to miss this email account. It was just such a great service. And they sent me a letter opener in the mail that was shaped like a floppy disk.
What?
So for years, I was just opening mail with this floppy disk. I think
I like the idea that an email company would send you an actual physical letter opener.
Right. I think that said a lot metaphorically, right?
Oh my God. What email provider was that?
believe it was My World Mail.
My World Mail.
Yeah.
All right. That is kind of obscure. As far as I know, I was all over Hotmail at the time until Gmail was invented.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much where everybody is these days.
Yeah.
Until you occasionally like work with somebody who has an AOL or a Hotmail account, and you're like,
Yeah, you kind of give them the side eye and be like, "Oh, honey, they make Gmail now."
Yeah, you're like, So let's talk a little bit about how we used to connect to the internet. Let me
Very slowly.
very slowly. Let's see if this sound effect rings any bells for you. See if you can identify this.
Realistic internet sounds.
Welcome. Goodbye. No. Yeah. Do you remember that? Like you'd spend all
dial-up.
afternoon trying to sign in via your dial-up modem, and it would kick you off like the second you got in sometimes.
Oh my god. Well, yeah, especially if your mom picked up the phone or
Yeah, you could hear that through your modem. Like if somebody in the house picked up the phone and be like, "Hello, are you on the internet? You're telling me I have to get on the internet." And it's just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it did not take us very long to get 2 phone lines after after that.
That was a pretty easy sell.
Because between me, my dad, and my uncle, someone was always online.
Yeah.
And we had one computer to share, which I mean, kids these days, they all have their tablets and their phones and their laptops. They don't know what it's like.
Back in my day, we had a giant box that only showed you 14 inches of image, and we liked it.
We only had 14 hours a week to use, and I had to write down my hours.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Now the internet's like kind of unlimited. I mean, your speed can get throttled, but back then you paid by the hour to be on the internet.
My dad used to get so mad when I'd go over, because I would go over all the time. He's like, "No, seriously, you have 14 hours. I'm like, "That's adorable." And I would have to write it down. I'd be like, 30 hours. "No, Lindsay, you did bad."
So, like, it's funny to think, for the most part, when we were, like, scolded or grounded as children, it was because we were too nerdy.
Yeah.
And you're just like, no, I really want to seek this information and knowledge. This is why I'm on the internet.
And maybe
ICQ.
talk to... Yeah. That was funny, too, because Mom's like, "What are you doing upstairs? Get off the computer." I'm like, "I'm doing homework." "Oh, okay. So anyway, Lee, what's going on today?"
How's it going? I'm talking to somebody in a different country. This is so out there.
I mean, doing my homework.
Yeah. I'm learning about other cultures, Mom. That's why my AOL minutes went over this month. I swear.
Yeah, let me tell you about Canada.
They have something there called maple.
Yum.
Yeah, and I remember people who didn't understand the internet and knew I was like into computers and whatnot. They would be like, "Oh, I got you some AOL disk. You get some free minutes." And the disc would say like, free hour of AOL or whatever on them. I'm like, I can't add this. You're just picking up extra crap at the dollar store and handing it to me. I don't want this. And I feel like at one point I knew somebody who made an art installation out of a bunch of AOL discs. Like they had been collecting them and they like sewed them all together and made their wall AOL disc.
That's got to be a thing.
Yeah, it sounds like it would be a thing, doesn't it?
It probably is. You know what? If we remember, we'll put a link in the podcast post about that. Yeah. That sounds pretty cool.
That does sound cool. I'm sure, a ton of people have done that one by now. If not, it's going to be very shiny here in a few weeks. Yeah.
I'll dig out my old CDs and discs.
Yeah, there were others. I remember for a while, you probably remember this, I switched to another internet provider that didn't have like a built-in chat room, and I could never figure out how to like connect with the world again. So I basically just had email for a while, and the email browser couldn't support any kind of background image. So every website was gray with black text, and it didn't support most images. So It was just like, it was like the world had been stripped away, and I was very isolated and alone for like a year until I was able to convince my my family to switch back to probably AOL at the time.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
It's like budget internet.
It was a scary world, really. It was like the Terminator future.
no-name dystopian internet.
Yeah, John Connor showed up and hacked it with an Atari. It was pretty cool, just like in the movie. How were computer classes for you in school? Because you already had one at home.
Yeah, I guess I was kind of on top of my class for those sorts of things, because even in grade school, I mean, I had a Commodore 64, I had the Tandy Coco. We always had some kind of computer, so I was always typing and playing games and whatever. So when we did typing class, I don't know what it's called over there. We had Almina, I think it was called.
I don't even know what that means.
Okay, I don't remember if it stood for anything, but it was just kind of like where you'd place your hands on the keyboard and do your typing.
Oh, we call it home row.
So I was... Oh, okay. Well, anyway, Hobro, Alvita, whatever. I was always really good at it, and they would put like a cloth over your hands, so like you couldn't look at the keys, and I would still be like, beep, blop, blop, and I would be awesome at it. But even going beyond that, in high school, we had data processing, where we learned how to use Microsoft Office. And this was an actual class, and I'm like, I've opened Excel before, I know how to use this program.
Did you find the hidden games in the Office suite?
No. Oh my god, maybe I'm not as good as I thought.
Yeah, I found out there were like maze games or pinball or something hidden in there.
Pinball?
Yeah.
I know there was like a pinball game you could play.
No, there was one like hidden in there if you like hit a certain combination of keys or something.
Oh man, you're a master at this. You must have just like floored people more so than I did.
I was very, very bored in those kind of classes. I remember, I think probably in my third or fourth typing class throughout my schooling, I kind of had it down by then, Had a computer, grew up with a computer, kind of knew. And to teach us to type, the guy would stand at the front of the room with an overhead projector, and he'd pull this sheet of paper down just a little bit, and he would say, all right, today we're learning the letter A. And then he'd pull down a sheet a little more. So we're going to type A.
Oh my god.
A.
My high school typing teacher would do that.
That's the big one at the bottom.
Oh my
A.
god.
And this was like my nightmare. And he knew I like didn't need this. So like when you weren't supposed to have like CD players and stuff in school, you remember that?
Oh yeah.
He would just kind of be like, you got your whole work done for the week in 5 minutes. You're good.
It is bizarre how they would make you take typing classes every year.
I know. It was brutal. They're like, computers are big. And I was like showing teachers how to delete files. Like that was something they didn't know how to do.
Wow.
We had like Oregon Trail on the like intranet at the school, so you could play with people in other classrooms, but it had no way to identify who was getting on the game. So you'd get in there and you'd be like, what class are you in? And then you type in all caps like, Mrs. Smith is a total jerkbag, and then they'd get in trouble and you'd sign off. And
that's awesome.
Nobody would ever know. Yeah. It was the good old days.
We didn't have that. Well, we had our own... Well, I'm from Ontario. We had our own Icon computers, and you can read about that on PopRewind, but we didn't have it so you could, like, talk to anyone else.
See, that's so sad and isolating. Almost like you used a third-party internet service provider for a year.
Aw.
Oh, no, that was me.
You poor thing. You survived. But do you think do they even teach typing anymore in schools?
And
or do you think they must teach like programming instead of typing at earlier levels?
I think some schools have kind of wised up, and now they teach maybe like Photoshop or something.
Oh, that would have been real helpful.
I know, right? Like real, just stuff people are actually going to use, I think, at this point. Mm-hmm. Probably knowing some of the advanced features of like the Office suite would be good. Like how to make a PowerPoint. I think everybody should know how to do that. But yeah, I don't know. Do they just say, all right, pull out your phones. We're going to learn to text today.
They're already on their phones, kids these days.
Yeah, I know. It's funny how they can have that stuff now. And it was like CD players were a crime. You'd listen to your CD player at lunch, like on your break. And they would
I remember my
fussy.
friends had pagers and would have to hide them.
You really knew somebody with a pager?
I went to high school in the 90s, yeah.
I didn't know that actually happened outside of movies like Clueless.
Oh, no, we all had... Well, I didn't have a pager, but a lot of my friends had pagers. And, you know, you could call and you would type in your message. And so we're like, oh, I have to talk to Samantha. Well, it's really important, but it's not really because we're in high school. So you would press, like, 911 and she would call you back right away.
Did I tell you I had a pager?
Did you really?
Yeah. I guess you didn't know this.
No. You never gave me your pager number? I'm offended.
Sorry. It was hot pink. And when you opened it up, there was bubble gum inside. And it was kind of amazing. And it was so much better and cheaper than everybody else's.
And tastier.
I had this CD once that was, it was actually gum. And I think I got this at Kmart. And it said ZZ Pop.
Oh my God.
And then you open up it looks like a CD case. It is a CD case.
Yeah.
You open it, and inside, instead of a CD, it's a circle of gum. And I took one bite out of it and closed it, and I found it like 10 years later. And there was this gum with like my teeth marks from when I was a kid. It was
for before you had braces.
Yeah. It was a rough scene for a while.
That is awesome.
Oh my gosh. So what's some of the technology you don't get today?
So much. Well, okay, a few things that I can't seem to get my head around Tumblr or Reddit. Reddit, I can kind of navigate in a way. Like, I see the value in that. But Tumblr, I'm totally lost. Like, the whole reblogging thing.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't see the point.
It seems like a bunch of animated cat gifs is my experience. Humor has changed on the internet.
Yes.
I was going through an old hard drive, a year or two ago, and I looked at the funny pictures I had saved on there, and it was just like a lot of photos that were either bad Photoshops or, just caught at the right moment of awkwardness. It's like, that's what humor used to be. And now everything's like the same picture with 20 different versions of the impact font over it. Like Wonka meme. Like, that's the humor
all those
now.
memes.
Yeah. I think that's why Nyan Cat is so fun. It took me by surprise.
That's quite a few years old, but yeah, I always smile when I see it.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Nyan Cat.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I'll see somebody with a Nyan Cat shirt, and I'm like, I get that. I'm not too old. I get that.
It makes us feel young again.
Yeah.
But what makes me feel old, as a segue, frickin' emojis. What do you do with them? I don't know.
I like them. That's the thing on the cell phone, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's okay to use them, if you're sending a text and you put like a happy face or whatever at the end, or like a pile of poop that I sometimes use. But sometimes people will put full messages with just emojis.
Oh, see, I like to pick the really ridiculous ones.
Yeah, that's why I like the poop one.
Like, I think mine... Yeah, it looks like mine has, like, pants and hats and castles. And it's like, when am I ever going to need to put the castle one?
But some people use it to send a message instead of just typing it out.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what I don't get.
That's because they don't go to space camp.
That could be a possibility.
What about web TV?
I never used it. Did you?
I used a knockoff of web TV once at a friend's house.
Why do you have all these knockoff internet services?
All right. Well, hey, everyone. Thanks for listening to the PopRewind Podcast, brought to you by...
PopRewind.com.
I've been Linz, and you've been...
Wait, you confused me.
You can follow us probably somewhere on the internet, speaking of all the internet things.
That's true. We're on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and Tumblr and SoundCloud. Where else are we?
I don't know, but...
Oh, Google Plus. Yeah.
It's a fun time, and thank you for listening to the Pop Rewind Podcast. As always, keep on Pop Rewinding.
Bye.
PopRewind.com